The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, showing what looked like a junkyard floating in space. Hundreds of primitive spacecraft drifted around the yellow star humans called Sol, tumbling slowly in the darkness like forgotten toys. Some were barely held together with visible hull patches. Others leaked frozen gases into the void, creating small clouds of ice crystals that sparkled in the distant sunlight. High Commander Rolf of the Torvan Empire stood before the council, his four arms spread wide in theatrical disbelief. His scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. Honored members, I present to you Earth's Grand Defense Fleet. Behold their mighty armada. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Representatives from a dozen worlds chittered, chirped, and guffawed in their native tongues. The translation matrix struggled to keep up with all the mocking commentary. Are those chemical rockets? Someone called out. I believe some still use nuclear fission, another voice added, which triggered a fresh wave of amusement. David Reed sat in the human delegation box, hands folded calmly on the table before him. His gray hair and lined face marked him as old by human standards, though barely middle-aged compared to most species present. He had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years now. He knew how to wait. Rolf continued his presentation, zooming the display in on particular vessels. This one appears to be from their early space age. 600 years old, give or take. No energy signature, no life support, no shields, no weapons systems that could threaten a modern shuttle, let alone a warship. He paused for effect, and yet they maintained this debris field as if it were some sort of defensive perimeter. Council Speaker Nira, a tall being whose crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns, raised one delicate hand. Ambassador Reed, would you care to explain your civilization's unusual approach to system defense? David stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. He could feel their expectation of embarrassment, of fumbling human excuses about limited resources or cultural attachment to historical artifacts. Those vessels serve their purpose, he said simply. Rolf's laugh boomed across the chamber. Their purpose? As navigation hazards? As a museum to your species' primitive past? They are positioned exactly where they need to be, David continued, his voice level and calm. They have been for 50 years now, since we first made contact with the wider galaxy. Positioned, Rolf repeated, his amusement evident. Yes, I suppose debris does eventually settle into stable orbits. He turned back to the council. Honored members, the Torvan Empire has been patient. We have respected Earth's claim to the Sol system despite their laughable defenses. But our growing population needs living space. The outer planets of their system are rich in resources and entirely uninhabited. David's expression did not change. The Sol system is human territory, recognized by this council. Recognition based on the assumption that you could defend it, Rolf countered. Can you honestly tell this assembly that those derelict ships pose any threat to a modern military force? The chamber fell silent. Even the translator matrix seemed to hold its breath. David looked directly at Rolf. His voice carried clearly in the stillness. I would strongly advise against testing that assumption. The laughter that followed was even louder than before. Rolf's scales flushed purple with mirth. A warning. How quaint. Tell me, Ambassador, which of those ancient hulks concerns me most? The one leaking atmosphere, or perhaps the one that appears to be held together with primitive welding? All of them, David said quietly. Rolf wiped moisture from his eyes, a gesture he had learned from watching humans. Very well. Consider me warned. He turned to Council Speaker Nira. The Torvan Empire formally announces our intention to establish colonies on the outer worlds of the Sol system. We will, of course, offer fair compensation to Earth for the resources we extract. You will be refused, David said. Then we will take what we need, Rolf replied, his amusement fading into cold certainty. Your ghost fleet will not stop us. Nira's crystalline form pulsed with soft light, a sign of distress among her people. Ambassador Reed, The Council cannot support Earth against the Torvan Empire if you cannot demonstrate credible defensive capabilities. The Empire's claim of necessity may override territorial rights if unopposed. David picked up his data tablet from the table. He had known this moment was coming for months. Intelligence reports had shown Torvan fleet movements near human space. They were not subtle in their ambitions. "Then I suppose we will see," he said. "Council Speaker, I request that all proceedings regarding the Sol system be suspended until the Torvan Empire completes its survey of our defensive capabilities." Rolf snorted. "Survey? You make it sound like we might discover something." "You might," David agreed. He met the commander's eyes across the chamber. "In fact, I guarantee it." Something in the human's tone made Rolf pause. It was not bravado or bluster. It was the quiet confidence of someone stating a simple fact, like observing that water was wet or that stars burned hot. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across Rolf's face. Then it was gone, replaced by dismissive certainty. "We will dispatch scout ships immediately. I look forward to presenting my detailed findings to the Council within the week." He bared his teeth in challenge. "Perhaps we will even salvage some of your museum pieces for scrap metal." David gathered his materials and turned to leave. Before stepping through the door, he looked back one final time. "Commander Rolf," he said softly, "did you ever wonder why we left those ships out there? Why we did not simply decommission them, break them down for parts, or let them burn up in our sun?" Rolf waved a dismissive hand. "Sentiment, nostalgia, human weakness." "No," David said. "Mathematics." The door closed behind him, leaving the council chamber in confused silence. Fleet Commander Besh reviewed the tactical display for the third time, searching for any detail his crew might have missed. The 12 scout ships showed as blue dots on the screen, spreading out in a standard reconnaissance pattern as they approached the human debris field. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. "Distance to first contact with the Ghost Fleet?" he asked. 200,000 kilometers and closing, his navigation officer reported. "Scouts are maintaining formation Delta 7. Besh nodded. Delta 7 was perfect for this kind of work. Wide spacing, overlapping sensor coverage, constant communication between vessels. If the humans had somehow hidden weapons among those ancient hulks, the scouts would detect them long before entering firing range. Not that he expected any resistance. He had studied the intelligence reports thoroughly. Those ships were old. Not just old by military standards, but ancient by any measure. Some dated back to when humans still used chemical propulsion. A few even appeared to be from their first attempts at interplanetary travel, primitive things that had probably never ventured beyond their own moon. "Commander, Scout 7 reports successful scan of the first derelict," the communications officer announced, confirming previous intelligence. "No power signature detected. Hull integrity at 47%. Vessel appears to be a cargo transport from approximately 600 years ago. Have them transmit full scan data," Besh ordered. The information flowed across his screen. The scout's sensors had penetrated deep into the dead ship, revealing empty corridors, depressurized compartments, and systems that had not functioned in centuries. There was nothing there, just metal and memories. "Scout 3 has visual confirmation on another cluster." Communications continued. "They are requesting permission to proceed through the debris field." Besh considered the request. Standard military doctrine said to be cautious, to assume the enemy had capabilities you had not yet discovered. But what enemy was there here? Humans had barely managed to develop functional plasma drives. Their weapons technology was generations behind Torvan standards. This entire mission felt like using a warship to threaten a child's toy boat. "Permission granted," he said. "All scouts may proceed. Maintain scanning protocols and report any anomalies immediately." The blue dots on his display moved forward, weaving between the scattered human vessels. More reports came in, each one confirming what they already knew. Dead ships, empty hulls, no threats. Besh allowed himself to relax slightly. High Commander Rolf would be pleased with a quick, clean survey. Perhaps they could complete the entire reconnaissance in a single day, claim the outer planets by tomorrow, and avoid any further tedious debate at the council. Scout 9 has entered the densest part of the field, his tactical officer reported. Sensor data shows approximately 80 derelict vessels within a sphere of 50,000 kilometers. All appear inactive. Any debris? Besh asked. Anything that could damage our ships? Negative, Commander. The field is remarkably clean. Whatever maintenance the humans do, they at least keep their junkyard organized. Light chuckles rippled through the bridge crew. Besh permitted it. Morale was important, and there was little enough to laugh about on long patrol missions. Commander, the communications officer's tone had changed. I'm getting some interference on the channel to Scout 5. Besh straightened. What kind of interference? Unknown. It started as minor static, but it's increasing. Scout 5 reports they can still hear us, but transmission quality is degrading. Probable cause. The communications officer checked his systems. Could be stellar radiation. We're fairly close to the human sun. Or possibly some kind of electromagnetic echo from the derelict ships. Old power cores sometimes retain residual charge. That made sense. Besh relaxed again. Monitor it. If it gets worse, have Scout 5 increase distance from the nearest derelicts. Yes, Commander. For several minutes, nothing happened. The scouts continued their survey. The interference on Scout 5's channel persisted, but did not worsen. Everything was routine. Then Scout 8 went silent. Communications, status on Scout 8, Besh ordered. The officer was already working the problem, his fingers dancing across his console. No signal, Commander. They were transmitting normally, and then nothing. Define nothing. Complete loss of signal. No distress call, no warning, no indication of system failure. The transmission simply ended mid-sentence. Besh felt the first cold touch of unease. Last known position. A yellow marker appeared on the tactical display, showing Scout 8's location deep within the debris field, surrounded by at least 20 human vessels. Tactical. Do we have any sensor data from Scout 8's position? Negative, Commander. They were operating independently. Other scouts are too far away for overlapping coverage in that sector. Redirect Scout 6 to Scout 8's last position. Full sensor sweep. The minutes that followed felt like hours. Besh watched as Scout 6 changed course, burning hard toward where their sister ship had disappeared. Every member of the bridge crew sat rigid at their stations, professional calm, barely masking growing tension. Scout 6 approaching the position now, tactical reported. Scanning. Besh held his breath. Commander, I have Scout 8 on sensors. The ship it's just floating. No power signature. No life signs. It's dead in space. Explain? Besh demanded. I cannot explain it, Commander. Scout 8 appears to be completely offline. All systems dark. It is drifting on momentum alone, caught in a slow tumble. Any damage? Any sign of weapons fire? Negative. Hull integrity shows at 98%. No energy weapon scarring. No kinetic impact damage. No explosive decompression. The ship is intact. It is just off. Besh's mind raced through possibilities. System failure? Unlikely. Torben Scout ships had triple redundant power systems. Crew error? Impossible. These were trained military personnel. Some kind of human trap? But the scans showed nothing. Commander, I'm losing signal with Scout 3. Same pattern as before. Static, then get them out of there, Besh ordered. All scouts, full reverse. Exit the debris field immediately. But even as he gave the command, more voices called out. Scout 11, signal degrading. Lost contact with Scout 7. Scout 9 is not responding. Scout 3 is gone. The blue dots on Besh's tactical display began winking out one by one. Like candles in a wind, he could not see or measure. Pilot Kelm checked his stealth ship's sensor display for the 100th time, knowing the readings would be the same as before. Nothing. The human derelicts showed up clear as day on passive scans, just dead metal tumbling through space. His ship's advanced detection systems could spot a powered-down probe from 1,000,000 kilometers away. Yet here among Earth's ghost fleet, everything read as harmless junk. That should have been reassuring. Instead, it made his skin crawl. Fleet Command, this is Stealth Group Leader, He transmitted on the encrypted channel, beginning close approach to grid section 77 Alpha. No anomalies detected. Admiral Oren's voice crackled back. Acknowledged, stealth leader. Remember, you have full authorization to retreat at first sign of trouble. We are not losing another ship to these humans and their tricks. Tricks. That was the word everyone used now. 12 scouts lost in the first attempt, and High Command called it tricks, as if humans had pulled off some clever magic show rather than. What? That was the question nobody could answer. What had happened to those ships? Kelm guided his craft forward at minimum thrust, keeping his energy signature as low as possible. Around him, 49 other Torvan warships advanced in a careful grid pattern. They were taking no chances this time. Every ship had overlapping sensor coverage with at least 3 others. They maintained constant communication. They recorded everything. Stealth leader, this is Wing 7. We have visual on multiple derelicts ahead. They match the database. Same ships that were there 3 days ago. Of course they did. The Ghost Fleet had not moved. That was part of what made this so frustrating. The humans were not even trying to hide whatever they were doing. Their ancient vessels just floated there, exactly where they had been for decades. All ships, reduce speed to 0.02 standard, Kelm ordered. I want full scans of every object larger than a maintenance drone. If there is so much as a camera hidden in this debris, I want to know about it. The fleet slowed to a crawl. Sensors swept across the derelict vessels in overlapping waves, building detailed maps of every square centimeter. Engineers back at fleet headquarters were analyzing the data in real time, searching for anything that might explain the disappearances. Hours passed. The Torvan fleet crept deeper into the ghost field, surrounded by humanity's discarded history. Kelm found himself staring at the hulks as they drifted past his view screen. Some were enormous, colony ships that had probably carried thousands of humans to Mars or the outer planets back when such trips took years instead of days. Others were tiny, single-pilot craft that looked barely capable of reaching orbit. Stealth leader, we are now at the coordinates where Scout 8 was disabled, his navigation officer reported. Kelm brought up the recorded data from that incident. Scout 8 had been transmitting normally, sending routine scan results, and then mid-sentence the signal had simply stopped. No warning. No distress call. When they found the ship later, it had been drifting with all power systems offline, crew unconscious but alive. The ship's own logs showed nothing. One moment operational, the next moment dark. Hold position, Kelm ordered. Full spectrum analysis. I want to know what is different about this location. The sensor technician worked in silence for several minutes. Stealth leader, I am detecting trace electromagnetic signatures. Very faint. They appear to be emanating from several of the nearby derelicts. Kelm felt his pulse quicken. Define trace. Barely above background radiation. If we were not specifically looking for it, we would miss it entirely. It is not consistent with active power systems. More like residual charge in old conduits. Or systems designed to appear inactive, Kelm muttered. Sir, nothing. Mark those vessels for detailed analysis. He opened the fleet channel. All ships, we may have found something. Maintain your current positions and run level 3 electromagnetic scans on all nearby derelicts. Look for any energy signature, no matter how small. Reports began flowing in from across the fleet. Every ship was detecting the same thing. Faint electromagnetic traces, barely measurable, coming from derelicts that should have been completely dead. Stealth leader, request permission to dock with one of the signatures and perform a direct examination, someone suggested. Kelm considered it. Direct examination would give them answers. But it also meant putting crew at risk. Negative. Not until we understand what we are dealing with. Continue remote scanning. That was when he saw it. Not on his sensors. Those still showed nothing but debris and faint EM traces. He saw it through the view screen with his own eyes. One of the derelicts, a bulky cargo hauler about 2 kilometers away, had shifted slightly. Just a tiny adjustment in its tumble, barely noticeable unless you were watching carefully. Navigation, confirm position of derelict at bearing 270 Mark 15. His navigation officer checked. Position matches database records. Stealth leader. That vessel has been in stable drift for, wait. A pause. Sir, I am showing a very minor position adjustment. 0.003 degrees change in rotation axis. Gravity, fluctuation. Kelm asked, knowing the answer already. Negative. Nearest gravity source is too distant to cause that kind of adjustment. Kelm's hands moved to his controls without conscious thought. Old training taking over. Fleet command, this is stealth leader. The derelicts are not derelicts. They are positioned. Repeat, the Ghost Fleet is positioned and under active control. Before Admiral Oren could respond, another derelict moved. Then another. Tiny adjustments, nearly invisible but deliberate. All ships, emergency reverse thrust, Kelm ordered. Exit the debris field, maximum speed. Stealth leader, we are detecting movement across the entire grid. His sensor technician reported, voice tight with fear. Multiple vessels adjusting position. They are creating I do not know what this is. Some kind of pattern. Kelm looked at his tactical display and felt ice form in his chest. The derelicts were not just moving randomly. They were coordinating, shifting into positions that closed off the paths his fleet had used to enter the field. Like a net drawing tight. Fleet command, we are compromised. The humans have been watching us the entire time. They let us come in, and now they are. He trailed off as his sensor screen began flickering. What is happening to my systems? The answer came not from his crew, but from the view screen. 3 more derelicts had maneuvered into position around his ship, forming a triangle. They were still showing no active power signatures, still reading as dead vessels on every scan. But they were moving with purpose. Stealth leader, all ships are reporting system interference, the communications officer said. It is the same pattern as the scout ships. Static increasing, power fluctuations beginning. Kelm grabbed his command console. All ships, full emergency protocols. Cut all external sensors. Switch to internal power only. Do not let them establish any kind of link to our systems. Too late. His displays went dark. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing the bridge in red. He could hear his crew shouting in confusion and fear. His last transmission went out on pure battery power, a desperate warning. They're not derelicts. They are positioned. Oh God, they're all connected. They are all. Then silence swallowed him too. Dr. Finn had been studying the remains of disabled Torvin ships for 3 days now, and nothing made sense. The Kalar scientist floated in zero gravity inside the human research vessel, her 6 delicate limbs manipulating holographic displays while her large eyes processed data at incredible speed. Around her, human technicians worked quietly, giving her space to think. This is impossible, she said for the 10th time that hour. Captain Willis drifted over, holding a bulb of coffee that he sipped carefully in the low gravity. Which part? We have several impossibilities to choose from. Finn gestured at the scan results with 2 of her limbs, while the others continued working. The power drain. Look at this. The Torvin ships lost all electrical function in less than 2 seconds. Complete shutdown. Life support, weapons, propulsion, communications, even backup batteries. Everything. And Willis prompted. And there is no weapon signature. No electromagnetic pulse. No particle beam. No plasma discharge. Nothing that could cause this kind of system failure. She pulled up another display. I have examined 4 different disabled Torvin vessels now. Each one shows the exact same pattern. Instantaneous power loss across all systems simultaneously. Like someone flipped a switch, Willis observed. Exactly like that. But switches require connection. These ships reported no boarding, no physical contact, no energy beam strikes. They simply turned off. Fun's tentacles quivered with frustration. In 300 years of space combat experience across 47 species, I have never seen anything like this. Willis took another sip of coffee. Want to know something interesting? Please. Anything that might explain this. We gave you access to all the disabled ships, right? Full sensor logs, communication records, everything. Yes, and I appreciate the transparency. Willis smiled. Look at the timestamps. Really look at them. Finn pulled up the data, examining the precise moment each Torvin ship had gone dark. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Ships had failed at different times, spread across several hours as different waves entered the debris field. But then she noticed the pattern. They are not random, she said slowly. Not even a little bit. Finn ran the calculation 3 times to be sure. The ships failed in sequence, not in the order they entered the field, not based on their location, but in a specific pattern based on. She stopped, her eyes widening. Based on their threat level. Got it in 1, Willis confirmed. The scout ships went first because they had the best sensors. Then the stealth ships because they could move undetected. The heavy cruisers went last because they were slow and easy to track. But that would require someone to be analyzing each ship, determining its capabilities, prioritizing targets. Finn looked at Willis with new understanding. Your ghost fleet is not automated defense. There is active intelligence making decisions. Want to take a guess at what kind of intelligence? Finn brought up the scans of the nearest derelict, an ancient human colony ship that had been drifting for 600 years. These vessels show no power signatures. My instruments can detect a functioning data core from 50 kilometers away. These ships are dead. Your instruments are very good, Willis agreed. Best in the galaxy, from what I hear. Then how? Finn demanded. Willis set down his coffee bulb, letting it float nearby. Let me tell you a story. 50 years ago, when we first made contact with the Galactic Council, we had a problem. We were new, we were primitive by galactic standards, and we had no way to defend ourselves against species with centuries of advanced military development. So you built the Ghost Fleet. We built a solution, Willis corrected. See, we looked at the problem from every angle. We could not match alien weapons technology. We could not match their ship speeds or their shield strength. We would always be behind in any kind of arms race. He gestured at the view screen where dozens of derelict ships floated in the distance. But we had something nobody else had. What? History. Hundreds of years of space vessels, spanning our entire development from chemical rockets to modern plasma drives. Ships that every species in the galaxy had already scanned and dismissed as worthless junk. Understanding began to dawn on Fun. You had something inside them. We put cutting-edge quantum processing cores into every single one. Cores that use almost no power. Cores that cannot be detected by conventional scans because they operate on completely different principles than anything the galaxy uses. Willis pulled up a schematic. Each ship contains an AI system more sophisticated than anything the Torvin Empire has ever built. And they're all networked together. Finn stared at the schematic. How many ships? 743 active units, Willis said. Give or take a few that we keep in reserve. 743 independent AI cores, all working together. Not exactly independent. They form a collective intelligence. Each one contributes to the whole. They have been observing every ship that enters the Sol system for 5 decades, learning, analyzing, building tactical databases on every known vessel design in the galaxy. Fun felt something close to awe. When the Torvin scouts entered the field, the network recognized their ship types immediately. It knew their weaknesses. It knew how to disable them without causing permanent damage or loss of life. All it had to do was get close enough. But the scans showed no weapons, no tractor beams, no energy transfer. Willis grinned. That is because the weapon is not energy-based. It is information-based. The AI cores generate very specific electromagnetic patterns, too subtle for standard sensors to detect. These patterns interact with the target ship's own systems, creating feedback loops that cause cascading failures. It is like, imagine a virus that attacks computers by whispering to them in a language they cannot help but listen to. That is, Finn search for words. That is brilliant and terrifying. We prefer to think of it as efficient, Willis said. Nobody dies. Nobody gets hurt. Ships get disabled, crews get picked up, everyone goes home eventually. But the Sol system stays protected. What happens now? Finn asked. The Torvins have 3,000 warships gathering at the system boundary. Willis's expression turned serious. Now we see if quantity can overcome quality. The Ghost Fleet has never faced that many ships at once. He paused. But between you and me, I would not bet against 700 AIs who have had 50 years to prepare for exactly this scenario. Fun looked at the floating derelicts again, seeing them with completely new eyes. They were not junk. They were not even weapons in the traditional sense. They were proof that humanity had learned a very important lesson. Sometimes the best defense was not the one your enemy could see. It was the one they dismissed as harmless until it was far too late. High Commander Rolf watched the tactical display with satisfaction as 3,000 warships moved into attack formation. This was not some cautious scouting mission. This was the full might of the Torvan Empire, enough firepower to conquer a dozen systems. The Ghost Fleet had gotten lucky with his scouts and advanced forces, but luck could not stop this. All battle groups report ready. Admiral Oren announced from his position at the command center. We can begin the assault on your order, High Commander. Rolf studied the map of the Sol system. The human defensive perimeter spread out before them, those ancient derelicts still tumbling in their lazy orbits, as if nothing had happened, as if they had not disabled nearly 100 Torvan ships. The arrogance of it made his blood burn hot. Begin the attack, he ordered. All ships advance. Target the defensive grid and punch through to Mars. I want a landing force on the surface within 6 hours. The fleet surged forward like a tidal wave of steel and fire. 3,000 ships, moving in perfect coordination, their shields overlapping to create an impenetrable wall of energy. Rolf had planned this assault himself. Every ship had been briefed on the Ghost Fleet's tactics. Every captain knew to maintain communications blackout protocols, to keep all external sensors on minimum sensitivity, to avoid any kind of electronic handshake with the human vessels. They would not fall for the same tricks that had claimed the scouts. Entering outer debris field, Oren reported. All ships maintaining formation. Rolf leaned forward, watching. Any moment now, the humans would try something. But what could they do against this many ships? Disable a few dozen? Even 100? He could lose 10% of his fleet and still overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. High Commander, I am receiving a transmission from the Human Defense Coordinator, the communications officer said. Audio only. Should I play it? Put it through. A calm voice filled the command center. Torvan Fleet, this is Director Mills of Earth Defense Command. You are entering protected space. This is your final warning to withdraw. Rolf activated his own transmitter. Director Mills, your warnings mean nothing. Your Ghost Fleet's tricks will not save you. We know how you disabled our scouts. We have adapted our systems accordingly. There was a pause. Then Mills spoke again, and Rolf could swear he heard amusement in the human's voice. High Commander, you misunderstand. The scout ships were disabled as a warning. We could have destroyed them. We chose not to. But if you continue this attack, I will be forced to activate Protocol Lighthouse. More threats, Rolf sneered. Attack formations, increase speed. Let us show these humans what real military power looks like. Acknowledged, Mills said simply. Activating Protocol Lighthouse. God help you all. The transmission cut off. For a moment, nothing happened. The Torvan fleet continued its advance, closing on the Ghost Fleet's position with overwhelming force. Then the derelicts began to wake up. High Commander, Oren shouted. Power signatures. Massive power signatures across the entire debris field. Rolf stared at his display in disbelief. Hundreds of vessels that had been dead for centuries suddenly blazed to life. Not just faint electromagnetic traces this time. Full active power cores, running at maximum output. Every single derelict ship lit up simultaneously, transforming from dark, tumbling junk into a constellation of active vessels. That is impossible, Rolf breathed. Those ships have no fuel, no functioning reactors. How are they not attacking? Oren interrupted. They are. I do not know what they are doing. Rolf pulled up the sensor data. Oren was right. The Ghost Fleet was not powering weapons or shields. Instead, they were broadcasting. Massive amounts of electromagnetic radiation poured from every vessel, filling space with overlapping waves of energy across every frequency imaginable. Sensor interference, someone called out. We are getting false readings across all detection systems. The tactical display that had been so clear moments ago dissolved into chaos. Ships appeared and disappeared. Distance readings fluctuated wildly. Navigation data became unreliable. Switch to visual tracking, Rolf ordered. We do not need sensors to see them. But visual tracking brought its own problems. The Ghost Fleet was not just broadcasting interference. The derelicts were moving now, using ancient thrusters to adjust positions, creating shifting patterns in the debris field. They wove between each other in complex dances, generating turbulence and unpredictable gravitational eddies. Battle Group 7 reporting collision warning. Communications reported. Multiple ships forced to break formation to avoid debris. Battle Group 12 requesting new navigation data. Their current course takes them through an unstable field of wreckage. Battle Group 3 has lost visual contact with Battle Group 4, requesting confirmation of positions. The perfect attack formation began to fracture. Ships that were supposed to maintain tight coordination found themselves separated by fields of spinning derelicts. Navigation became a nightmare of constant course corrections and emergency maneuvers. High Commander, we need to slow down, Orin urged. We are losing formation integrity. Negative, Rolf snarled. Press the attack. They cannot stop 3,000 ships with navigation tricks. But the Ghost Fleet was not trying to stop them. It was hurting them. Rolf did not realize it at first. He was too focused on maintaining the assault, on pushing through the chaos to reach clear space beyond the defensive perimeter. It was only when he pulled up a system-wide tactical view that he saw the truth. The Torvin fleet was not advancing toward Mars anymore. Through 1,000 tiny course corrections, each one seeming reasonable at the time, each one made to avoid collision or navigate around obstacles, they had been guided off course. The entire fleet was being funneled into specific corridors, pushed into concentrated groups, separated into smaller formations. They are dividing us, he said aloud. Sir. Orin looked confused. Rolf pointed at the display. Look at our positions. We entered as one unified force. Now we are scattered across 50 different locations, with the Ghost Fleet positioned between our groups. They have isolated our battle groups from each other. As if responding to his realization, the Ghost Fleet made its next move. Derelicts repositioned themselves, creating walls of debris that blocked direct paths between Torvin groups. Ships that tried to push through found themselves facing fields of tumbling metal, forced to navigate at crawling speeds or risk catastrophic collision. Battle Group 19 is reporting fuel concerns, communications said. All the course corrections and emergency maneuvers have depleted their reserves faster than expected. Battle Group 8 requests resupply. Their tanker got separated from a main formation. Battle Group 32 has lost contact with... Wait, correction, we have lost contact with Battle Group 32 entirely. The interference is too strong. Rolf felt control slipping away like water through his fingers. 3,000 ships, the pride of the Torvin Empire, being dismantled not through firepower, but through patience and precision. The emergency council session had been going for 2 hours, and Ambassador David Reed had not said a word. He sat quietly in the human delegation box, listening as species after species debated what to do about the Torvin fleet trapped in the Sol system. Some argued for intervention. Others insisted it was an internal matter. A few suggested sanctions against Earth for what they called excessive defensive measures. David waited. Council Speaker Nira finally turned to him, her crystalline form pulsing with agitated light. Ambassador Reed, the Torvin Empire has formally requested council mediation. 3,000 ships are stranded in your system, unable to retreat due to your defensive network. This situation cannot continue. David stood slowly, gathering his thoughts. Every eye in the chamber fixed on him. The Torvin fleet is not stranded, he said calmly. They can leave any time they wish. They simply need to ask. High Commander Rolf, appearing via hologram from his disabled flagship, made a sound of disgust. Ask? We demand safe passage. Your Ghost Fleet has violated every principle of military engagement. You have not fired a single shot, yet you hold an entire battle fleet hostage. Exactly, David agreed. We have not fired a single shot. No Torvin has been killed. No ship has been destroyed. Your crews are safe, your vessels are intact, and if you had accepted any of the 14 offers of safe escort we have transmitted in the past 6 hours, you would already be gone. Safe escort, Rolf repeated with bitter sarcasm. Under human control, a human direction. That is not safe passage, that is surrender. David shook his head. High Commander, you entered our system with an invasion fleet. You declared your intention to seize our territory by force. We defended ourselves using non-lethal means specifically to avoid loss of life. And now you complain because we will not simply let you reorganize and try again. The Council recognizes Earth's right to defense, Nearest said carefully. But holding an entire fleet indefinitely creates a dangerous precedent. We are not holding them indefinitely, David replied. We are offering them a choice. Accept escort out of the system under a ceasefire agreement, or continue to drift until their supplies run out and they accept anyway. Either way, no one dies. Dr. Fun, the Kalar scientist, spoke up from the gallery. If I may, Council Speaker, I have completed my analysis of the Ghost Fleet's capabilities. What Earth has accomplished is remarkable. They have created a defensive system that neutralizes military threats without causing casualties. This is exactly the kind of innovation the Council should encourage, not condemn. Innovation or trickery, someone called out. Is there a difference? Dr. Finn countered. Humans recognized they could not match galactic military technology, so they found another path. They weaponized patience and preparation. They turned perceived weakness into actual strength. Every species in this chamber should be taking notes. Rolf's hologram flickered with anger. You speak of strength? They hide behind ancient ships and electronic parlor tricks. Where's the honor in that? Where's the courage in fighting without firing a shot? David turned to face Rolf directly. High Commander, you want to know about courage? 50 years ago, my species looked at the galaxy and realized we were outmatched in every measurable way. We could have built bigger guns. We could have started an arms race we would inevitably lose. Instead, we chose a different path. We spent half a century building a defense that would protect without killing. That took courage. It took cowardice, Rolf spat. Did it? David asked quietly. Tell me, High Commander, how many of your people died in this invasion attempt? How many families will mourn lost soldiers? How many ships were destroyed beyond repair? Rolf said nothing. None, David answered for him. 0 casualties. 0 permanentes. Your ships are disabled, but intact. Your crews are safe, but frustrated. In a few days, when you finally accept reality, you will all go home to your families. He paused. That is not the result of cowardice, High Commander. That is the result of careful planning by people who value life above pride. The chamber fell silent. Even the automatic translation system seemed to pause, as if processing the weight of David's words. Council Speaker Nira's light patterns shifted to a calmer blue. Ambassador Reed, what are Earth's terms for releasing the Torvin fleet? Simple, David said. High Commander Rolf will make a formal declaration before this council recognizing human sovereignty over the Sol system. The Torvin Empire will withdraw all territorial claims to our space. In exchange, we will provide safe escort to every Torvin vessel, full resupply for those who need it, and a treaty of non-aggression lasting no less than 100 standard years. You asked me to surrender, Rolf said. I ask you to acknowledge reality, David corrected. Your fleet is beaten, not by superior weapons, not by greater numbers, but by preparation, strategy, and a willingness to find solutions beyond violence. You can accept that now, or you can drift in our system until your supplies run out and you accept it later. Your choice. Rolf was quiet for a long moment. David could see the calculations running behind the commander's eyes. Pride versus practicality. Honor versus survival. Finally, Rolf spoke. If I agree to these terms, will you guarantee the safety of my fleet? You have my word, David said. Every ship will be escorted to the system boundary. Any vessel experiencing mechanical difficulties will receive assistance. No crew member will come to harm. Another pause. Then Rolf's shoulders slumped slightly, a gesture of defeat that transcended species barriers. Very well. I will make the declaration. 3 days later, David stood at an observation window on the human defense station, watching the last Torvan ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. The Ghost Fleet had already returned to its dormant state, ancient vessels once again tumbling silently in the void. Director Mills joined him at the window. "We got lucky," the director said. "If Rolf had been willing to sacrifice ships, to just keep pushing through regardless of losses, the Ghost Fleet might not have stopped them. But he was not willing," David replied. "That was the calculation we made 50 years ago. Most species, even aggressive ones, are not willing to accept unlimited casualties for conquest. They want victory, yes, but they also want to survive to enjoy it. And if we had been wrong," David smiled slightly, "then we would have found out if Plan B worked as well as Plan A." Mills raised an eyebrow. "There's a Plan B. Director, we have plans through Plan Z and are working on subscripts." David turned from the window. "Did you really think we would put our entire defensive strategy in one basket, no matter how clever that basket was? I suppose I should have known better." Indeed, David started walking toward the exit, then paused. "Oh, and Director, make sure the Ghost Fleet logs are updated. 3,000 Torvan warships. Full tactical analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, response times. The network should study this engagement thoroughly." "Already in progress," Mills confirmed. "The AIs are very excited about all the new data." David chuckled. "I bet they are. Nothing like a good learning opportunity to keep a defense network sharp." Outside the window, Earth's Ghost Fleet continued its eternal watch, patient and silent, waiting for the next species that might need to learn the same lesson the Torvans had. Sometimes the strongest defense was not the one that could destroy an enemy, but the one that could make attacking seem pointless in the first place.